All right, well, welcome everyone. I have been leading residential green construction projects now for over a decade through consulting and rating, new, existing, single family, multifamily. And I can tell you one of the biggest barriers to making our housing stock more sustainable and energy efficient, it's not cost that's the big barrier, or technology, or lack of knowledge or workforce. Those are all concerns, of course. But one of the biggest problems is just the poor communication as a huge barrier. Now, when it comes to selecting more sustainable products, implementing sustainable and high performance design, and achieving the green certifications and low energy ratings, people simply fail to communicate with each other. And when you get a rater involved in a project, that's one more person to bring into the communication chain. But it's also a huge opportunity for that rater to cut through the miscommunication and ensure goals are met. And that's why I'm real excited about today's session. But before we get started, I want to remind everyone that support for the Green Home Institute comes from Build Equinox. Traditional ERVs and HRVs provide basic ventilation, but often lack protection against airborne threats like seasonal flu, wildfire, smoke. Introducing the SERV, an advanced indoor air quality management system. It offers energy recovery ventilation along with enhanced protection and intelligent air management. It has continuous monitoring throughout the home or multifamily building or a commercial building for CO2 and VOC levels, ensuring fresh air is only brought in when pollutants exceed healthy thresholds to improve indoor air quality and save energy at the same time. Features a high efficiency heat pump that recovers energy from exhausted air, preconditioning and dehumidifying incoming air for maximum comfort. It operates in a recirculation mode, acting as a whole house air purifier, and has supplemental dehumidification as well as supplemental heating and cooling. And for those concerned, it has optional UV lights as well. For institutional projects, they also have larger systems that can bring in more fresh air as well. So check them out over at buildequinox.com to learn more about the SERV 2 or the SERV 1000 to be healthier. All right, welcome everyone to Closed Loop Communication for Better High Performance Homes. This session is brought to you by the Green Home Institute. The Green Home Institute is a nonprofit with a mission to empower people to make healthier and more sustainable choices in the renovation and construction of the places we live. We're a small but mighty team, and today I will be your moderator. My name is Brett Little, and I am the education manager here. As always, our course is approved for multiple continuing education units, including 4 of the pillars of green in our certified green home professional designation: energy, material, water, and health. AIA, health, welfare, and safety may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. Make sure you grab that 5-digit Passive House FIAS code at the end. It'll be sent to you in your certificate as long as you're appropriately logged in and stay for the entire CU hour. So with that, I'm excited to hand it off to our speaker here today, Doug Hansel-Pauly. Doug, welcome, and please go ahead and introduce yourself, and then tell us a little bit too about who the Home Energy Rating System Council is as well. So Doug, welcome, and please take it away.
Thank you, Brett. My name is Doug Hansel-Pauly, and I am the owner-operator of DHP Energy and the president of the Home Energy Rating Systems Council. The Home Energy Rating Systems Council is a nonprofit organization that was formed by myself and several other raters from around the nation. And our goal is to help advocate for small independent raters out there through education and helpful tools such as what we're going to present today. We like to advocate through the use of ANSI and ISO standards for best practice. So other than that, we do have a website. It's a long name, so it's homeenergyratingsystemscouncil.org. Go ahead, log into there and have a look at what we've got to offer. So that being said, I would like to move forward with the presentation. And so Brett, can you see the screen? We good to go?
All good.
All right. So thanks for joining today. This is a webinar on closed loop communication with early design assist meetings. This is a way to decrease inspection failures, which as a rater we see quite often, and increase profit margin. Repeat inspection costs time, costs money, and slow down the entire process. So that being said, I'd also like to give a special shout out to Energy Trust of Oregon. They were instrumental in developing field guides, such as the EPS field guide, both in English and in Spanish, as well as several other resources. These are great resources to use out in the field for raters, subcontractors, and builders. So moving forward, let's talk about the different types of communication that are out there. So we all know about verbal, that's use of spoken word. There's also nonverbal, that's body language, facial expressions. We have written, which is typed or written, obviously. There's technological, which is emails, text messages. There's organizational communication, which is between different types of groups. Now, within that, there's communication breakdown. So when you're looking at communication breakdown, it starts with lack of listening. There's also other barriers, such as an emotional barrier. With emotional barriers, people can feel offended, become defensive, and then they suddenly stop listening. There can be too much information, so you need to read the room. Typically, when you're trying to convey new information, people can handle 3 to 5 new topics before they get overwhelmed. So you need to know just how much information the clients can take. There's perceptual barriers. That's I don't feel, I don't think I can do this. There's failing to acknowledge others. And then there's improper communication channels, and there's lack of communication plans. So looking at all of this, how do we prevent these from happening? To start with, we got to try a different approach. So let's talk about closed loop communication as a different approach. Closed loop communication defined is the person receiving the information or the instruction will repeat it back to make sure the message is understood correctly and the sender confirms the closed loop. So the origins of this, the origins are in military, and this is where it was very crucial for communications to be conveyed back so that our own troops were not injured in ammunition attacks, bombings, things like that. So if we were to look at closed loop communication in a photo, it's almost like a snake eating its tail. You start with the sender initiates a message. The receiver accepts the message. The sender verifies the message was received. This can go on and on and on. So when we're closing the loop, how can we do this? So in construction, I've been doing this for 9 years now. And it took me about 5 of those years to try and figure out just how I can decrease these chronic failures that we see. So I've got a free PDF that's downloadable. I believe Brett has it on the website as well. It'll be emailed out and it's on the Systems Council website as well. This is a modifiable PDF, so you can cut out my logo and you can put in your own logo. Meet your company needs. If you're doing USGBC, you're doing LEED, you're doing very specific programs, remove what I do and add what you do. Use this PDF file to capture all of the data. So when we're talking about data collection, the devil is in the details. Brett and I were talking earlier about trying to dial in something like an ERI by just a couple of points. So when we're capturing data from the builder, we want all of the information, and this is an evolving program. So starts with an early design meeting, as we're talking about. They break ground. Things might change midstream. What was on the plans might actually not be what's in the field. So you need to continue to fill this PDF out. It evolves. It is changeable. It is editable, not changing out what I'm doing, but change what you've typed out. So this is essentially a ongoing log of reporting. share this. Each time you do an inspection, you send it out to the contractors that are based on this inspection. If I'm doing a framing inspection, at that point, I will also try and do a rough duct test. So if there's an issue with the framing and we're going for dozer, for instance, and I'm seeing too much framing going on, or I'm seeing a header that's not able to be insulated, even though it's not an engineered header, I'll call these out and I'll send that out to the general contractor and the framer. That way they know that there was an issue. I don't want to just speak to the contractor because then the contractor will speak to the framer. This is a communication breakdown called the telephone game. So I take the mail to the mailbox. Once you send that out, you request confirmation from that subcontractor. You make sure that you're closing the loop. If there's an issue with that framing, repeat the email. Do a physical call if you have to, but you need to make sure that they understood there is a problem. So here's a great example that I ran into about 8 months ago, and I had picked up a nonprofit organization that's doing low-income homes. This is an amazing builder who is a land trust. So they're doing low-income homes, and here's the specs. This is a 1,100 square foot home with R38 in the floor, R24 in the walls, blown in blanket, R60 in the ceiling. Triple pane windows, arrow barrier done at drywall at 0.6 ACH. We have ducted, ductless mini split systems. These are Mitsubishi and 11 HSPF 17 SEER. We do have a tanked water heater, 0.92 EF. So that's kind of a big ding, but Energy Star Appliances and Earth Advantage had donated all the certificates. So sounds like a great house, doesn't it? It didn't pass. So let's talk about why this didn't pass. When I was brought into the project, unfortunately, Earth Advantage did not have the time or the manpower because they were donating the certificates to do a drill down and figure out where the failure happened. And this is not a single home that they're building. These are 60 homes, all identical. So we need to figure out what's going on, stop it immediately, and correct it so this isn't happening on every single home. The duct leakage was 126 CFM at 50 Pascal. I know standard testing is 25 Pascal, but in the Pacific Northwest, with the programs we use, we test at 50 Pascal. Allowable leakage was 46.8, so that fails. The blower door was 4.5 ACH. Allowable was 4 ACH. Now we arrow barriered to 0.6. What happened? We got to do a drill down. We need to locate the air barriers and duct leakage locations. We need to identify the cause of the leak. Then we need to identify a plan to correct this. Remember, this is multiple homes this is happening on, and develop a plan to prevent the leaks in the future. So my background, I spent 20 years in healthcare as a respiratory therapist. When I was given an assignment, there was never, I can't do this. You keep working on it until you're either relieved, the patient is cured, or the patient passes. But you don't stop. So when there's an issue and something catastrophic happens, they do what's called a root cause analysis. In construction, I take that same concept and I want to identify and locate the HVAC boot to drywall connections. This is what I saw. This is the first photo. This is the second photo. Now, I can slide my entire hand into that second photo gap. I'm a small person, 5'2", 120 pounds. So I've got a small hand, but that's a 4-inch wide duct, and I can slide my hand right up in there. Keep in mind, this is only 1,100 square foot home, no vaulted ceilings, 9-foot ceilings. So where did this communication breakdown happen? So the register boots were installed incorrectly at rough-in. What I mean by this is these were not supported on both sides. This was just the flanged ceiling HVAC boot to drywall connection, and they only nailed it onto one of the bottom cords of the truss. It should have been supported all the way across. This was identified by Arrow Barrier, and that's where those photos came from. Aero Barrier was in a hurry. They didn't want to have this fixed because they had a tight time schedule. So the drywall penetrations were taped over so that they could pressurize Aero Barrier and pressurize the house at 100 Pascal. They got everything sealed up except for those giant gaps. And those were only two of the five registers. All registers were in the same situation. So the ACH and total duct leakage failed due to a not my problem attitude. So we see this all the time. I'm sure every rater out there has seen another subcontractor identify a problem and walk away. And unfortunately, that makes it very difficult for raters to be profitable or even builders to be profitable if there's slowdown in the process. Time is money. So let's play it if this, then that game. The HVAC contractor in this situation, and I talked to them personally, they were not aware that these homes were going through Earth Advantage certification. Um, they knew that there were certifications, but they didn't know all of the requirements. If they knew that, they would have secured the duct correctly. Uh, if there had been an early design assist meeting with this, and it's not that Earth Advantage didn't do this design meeting, but they meet with the builder typically, and we need to put just a little bit more effort in it. And what I mean by that is I meet with the builder, I meet with all of the subs that are necessary. Time is money, and time spent in advance is well worth it. I don't charge the contractors for all of this extra work, but I make it up in the end. So this particular builder, if we continue moving forward with it, the Aero Barrier contractor, they actually identified the problem. They're the air barrier contractor, and they knew that this house would not pass, but they had a tight schedule and not their problem. They figured that somebody else would fix this. If there was an early design assist meeting again, and it's not that the meeting has to happen with everybody present, but with communications through email or phone or in person, any of the communication methods that were mentioned, will make sure that all of the subs know that there are requirements. So let's talk about documentation. In healthcare, in a court of law, if you did not document it, you did not do it. You could be witnessed by 500 people, but if you did not personally document it yourself, it was not done. So if you didn't document it, you didn't do it. Let's look at 5 simple steps that we can do. And when I talk about 5 simple steps, it's actual 5 pages. This is that fillable PDF form that is editable. This is the one that's for my company, but I use this on all of my builders. And we're going to walk through this, showing you step by step exactly how you can close the loop in communication, make sure that all builders and subcontractors involved in the project know exactly what's necessary. So this is where the devil is in the details. Looking at page 1, we're going to set our expectations right off the bat. We start with our date, our subdivision, our permit information. This is all information that's required for national programs like Energy Star. We look at things like the subdivision name, the number of homes. Then we want to fill in things like the builder's name, the framer, HVAC contractor. Those are mandatory. If we get to things like plumbing, I'll ask for a plumber's name if we're looking at hydronic, if we're looking at any kind of advanced plumbing features. Electricians I bring in if we're doing solar ready, EV ready, batteries, items like that. Installation contractors, absolutely mandatory. They're typically the air sealing contractor as well. Solar contractor, only if solar is going in. And then the rater. Just because I'm filling this out doesn't mean that I might be the rater, or you might have an RFI on there. Maybe I'm filling this out, I'm going to hand it off to someone else. So you want to make sure everybody involved in this, start to finish, their names are documented. If they're going to be involved in the project, you want their information. That way you can email them, you can call them on the phone, you have their address, you can show up in person and communicate with them. So let's talk about setting the expectations in writing and explain exactly what is necessary. So I'm going to read through this specifically. This meeting is designed to help all necessary trades understand the mandatory requirements for the certification program. There will be periodic field inspections to validate the installation of some of the components of the home. There are 3 inspections required for this program, and additional inspections may be conducted at the rater verifier's discretion. The first inspection will be completed after framing is completed and prior to installation. This is a block and seal inspection for me. Now, not all raters will do 3 inspections, but that's what I do. Again, this is editable, so please feel free to change this as you see necessary. Second inspection will be completed after the installation and prior to drywall. I'll do a rough duct test to get my total duct leakage at this time or at the framing inspection, but more often than not, the ducts are not completed at framing. The third inspection will be the final inspection of the home, and this is when the home is ready for certificate of occupancy. We've set our expectations in black and white. We've documented it. We've sent this off to all people involved. So we're going to use multiple forms of communication to verify the understanding of all the details. Moving past that expectation form, we've got the first section of the fillable. So I talk to them in person. I say, for instance, what kind of foundation do we have? Is it a slab on grade? Is it a vented crawl space? Conditioned crawl space? If they're unsure on these, I want to use photos. This is from Energy Trust of Oregon. Here's great photos on a conditioned crawl space, a slab on grade. So we're showing perimeter insulation, we're showing slab insulation, we're showing very specific details on this. A picture is worth 1,000 words. Sometimes the contractor may not know exactly what they're looking for. So we need to verify all of this. When we go to other advanced assemblies, we're talking about windows. Oh yeah, they're this window or it's that window. They don't have specific numbers and they don't realize how much that can change the rating. EBA and Earth Advantage did a study. I'm sorry, it wasn't EBA, it was Better Built Northwest, and Earth Advantage did a study that was in the EBA conference this past year, and it was talking about triple pane windows versus outboard insulation. So windows are crucial, and more often than not, the general contractor is not aware of the exact window specs. They're also not aware of things like 6-sided boxes when we're talking about tubs and showers. This is the block and seal. So use a photo. We've got a photo of an attic knee wall. We've got a fireplace on an exterior wall. We've got a bathtub. We've got a skylight. We've got our window and FRC. These are the details I'm talking about. You can explain it verbally. You can put it down in writing, but sometimes they just don't get it until they see it in a photo and then it clicks. So it's all about the communication. You need to continue to try different types of communication until you get to what you are shooting for. So looking at the next area, we're talking about can lights. Oh yeah, we have gaskets on our can lights. Those are sealed. We have our duct systems, we seal them tight. Okay, are you using mastic paste? Yes, we're sealing them tight. Well, I will hear more often than not, we use mastic paste and I show up and there's mastic tape and panduits or foil tape. We talk about photos. So here's an example of a can light being properly sealed. Photos of air sealing at the top plate, photos of nickel thick mastic on the ductwork. This is what we're talking about. Use photos of good and bad. Some of these photos are available through national programs as well. But download a resource and make a file of photos like this. Feel free to reach out to me. I've got files of photos as well. But when I sit down and I meet with a contractor, I'll have a 3-ring binder that has a ton of different photos. And I'll break it down into categories. It might be a whole series of HVAC for choosing different equipment. It might be a whole series of ductwork, might be zonal pressure relief, might be ventilation strategies. But I will have written verbal and photo examples of everything I'm talking about so that they understand exactly what I'm asking for. Here's some more examples of zonal pressure relief. A lot of programs require that you need to, if you've got more than one register in a room, you have to have zonal pressure relief. This could be a jumper duct. This could be a dedicated return. This could be a high-low. But you have to have some sort of pressure relief. You talk to them about ventilation. I don't know even a HVAC contractor that understands all of the different ventilation systems as well as a rater does. And it's their job to install it and commission it. So we really need to talk about this with some of these clients. My passion as a retired respiratory therapist is on high-end mechanicals, specifically on ventilation. So I want to make sure if we get these tight homes, we're not having issues like bulk moisture. These are high performing homes. These are low air changing homes. And a lot of homes are in humid environments. So if you don't have proper ventilation, you're going to have bulk moisture issues. Then you have to have additional mechanicals such as dehumidifiers. So then the price starts to go up. A early design, proper mechanicals, proper design will actually save money in the build process. Now we get into some of the more detailed items. We go through, we want to collect the basic information, lighting, appliances, mechanicals, items like that. You don't have to fill everything out in advance. Again, this is a ongoing fillable form. So fuel summary, you're not going to have any type of fuel summary in the very beginning, but you're going to data collect. Then you can go to Ecotrope, House Rater, REM rate. You could do, once Apex comes out, you could try that through Pivotal Energy and start entering the model. As you start to get closer towards the final, maybe the builder now has all of the appliance information, so you can enter that. This is where you can start to really dial in that ERI. And if you don't have this information in the beginning, you can't build that model. If you're not going to inspect until the end and build your model at the end, now you're scrambling to try and find the ERI or the HERS score that you're looking for. So continuing to fill out the documentation as the project moves along is very, very important. We have specific details in Oregon for solar ready, for EV ready, and we have incentives that are tied to these. I don't know many other states that are as robust solar-wise as Oregon is, but these are great examples of solar ready layouts on a home. When we're talking about solar ready, people say, oh yeah, I'm making my house solar ready. And then they stack all of the roof jacks on the backside and all the plumbing stacks on the backside of the house. And the backside of the house is the south face. I know nobody wants to see those plumbing stacks and roof vents from the street side, but is the goal beauty or is the goal efficiency? It's entirely up to the homeowner and what they want. But if the builder does not lay things out properly, this home won't qualify. EV ready wise, you need to make sure that you've got everything laid out properly. If the homeowner who's buying the home has an EV and it wasn't EV ready, now they're going to pay additional money to have this all dialed in. So photos like this, it shows all of the necessary requirements that are best practice. Use additional forms that make sense to you. What I mean by that is you don't have to use a form that is designed specifically for the program that you're using. Look online. Start trying to find other forms that can be very useful to you. Like, for instance, Energy Trust Air Barrier Checklist, the Energy Star Thermal Bypass Checklist. Whether these are applicable or not, they're useful. Mass Saves has got a great insulation one. And then the Oregon Air Barrier checklist for a code verification. Go to Google, type air barrier checklist. There'll be dozens that come up for different programs, state and national. So download something, make it applicable to you, and start using it in the field. If you didn't document it, you didn't do it. So this is document, document, document. I know paperwork is a nuisance, but it will also save a ton of time and money in the end. And it will make all of the jobs that much more successful. I do spend a lot more time in the beginning because I personally feel that it's very beneficial to spend a few hours unpaid in the beginning, even 10, 12 hours in the beginning, to make sure that the next 50 homes, I'm not doing repeat emails, repeat failures, repeat inspections, repeat billing, repeat of increasing cost and slowing down the entire production. So low income homes are a passion of mine, and I really want to see these built quickly and built well. So, using different checklists out there, applicable or not to your program, find something that is applicable to the project. Now let's talk about the carrot or the stick. And this is where full disclosure and full transparency will make everybody understand things. The builder knows what they're going for. They know that there's incentives. These are my programs that I work in. So with Energy Trust of Oregon, there's between $1,000 and $3,500 cash that comes back. You can get an additional $3,000 cash in solar. If you're looking at Energy Star or Dozer, those are $2,500 tax credits. Energy Trust Solar Plus Storage or low income, those are additional items as well. List all of these, make a checkbox, make sure that all of the subcontractors are aware there's money tied to this. And it's not a little, this is a lot of money. And if you're doing 60 homes, multiply that by this, put it in red. If the above cash, or I'm sorry, the above cash incentives and tax credits are only if the project passes all of the mandatory requirements for each program. The programs are slightly different and work closely with your rater to ensure you meet all of the program requirements. So black and white. Now it's in red. This stands out. Green or blue are comfort colors. Red is an aggressive color. Red is stop. Red means pay attention. So after this, you've got your additional notes. Throughout this, you can free text any notes you want throughout the entire fillable file. I will add notes and continue to add notes. Any failures, any repeat inspections go in this. This is kind of a running document at the very end. In the very beginning of the early design assist, any subcontractors that are mandatory for my programs, I make sure to get their name, their phone number, and their email. Then I send it back to them. And this is the conditional agreement. The general contractor has approved this information, and by signing this document, you are agreeing to the requirements of this build. All information in this document has been reviewed by you, and inspections needing corrections will be completed to the above mentioned specs. This is a pass-fail program. And the requirements and if the requirements are not met, the home will not gain the required certification. If there are any questions or concerns with this document, please contact the rating company directly for clarification. They sign it, they date it. This is now not, I'm not a lawyer, but they signed it. This becomes a legal document. They understand all of the requirements. When you call them back and say, it didn't pass, I don't want to hear, well, my guy had a bad day. He did the best he could. Unacceptable. Go back and fix it. And it's on them to fix it. So when you think about documenting things, think about healthcare, think about military. They have very, very low failure rates, very, very low miscommunication rates. It happens. We're human. We're fallible. But you want to make life as easy as possible for you because time is money. This is a business, and we're all in this not to just straight up retire, but to try and make some money and have a good time. So at this point, are there any questions, Brett?
No, not at this point. No.
Okay, so we're going to go into a demonstration here, and Brett and I are going to just kind of walk our way through this. And he's going to be the builder. I'm going to wind up being uh, and I'll be the rater. And so let me just bring this up. And so this is that file. If you guys, and I'll just show you, it's in PDF. I use Apple, but this is Acrobat Pro. So if you wanted to edit it, you download it, click edit. You can cut out my logo and insert your own. You can, type out whatever you want, change out any of the words you want. This is not proprietary to me. This is something I'm sharing with everybody because I think it would be much easier if everybody was able to rate a home very easily. So you just click type text. And so we're going to work with today. And we go through. So it's going to be, and we can fill in this type of things. But Brett, what would the start date on this project be? And how many homes are you thinking?
So just so you know, Doug, I did ask or inform the audience I wanted to actually kind of kick these answers to them too and
Oh, yeah, yeah.
get them thinking. Now I'll make this one up, but I did let everybody know I want to just have everybody respond to some of the other technical questions that come in. So let's pretend we're doing, a multifamily project. So I assume in the case of homes, you would do units, or would it
Yeah.
be easier to do a subdivision?
Well, and we could do units. So quite
Yeah,
often, if I've got a triplex
yeah,
or like six triplexes,
yeah,
let's say it's six triplexes, so
yeah,
that'd be 18.
yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, just
Um,
something bigger.
and
So,
so you'd
uh,
be, and we don't need to fill in all of the
yeah,
email stuff, but
yeah.
what would the project start date be?
So yeah, that will be what? So let me ask you. Let's make this conversational. I mean, in regards to like when you want to have this kind of information from
Yes.
your
So
perspective, like there's in the architecture world, there's the 0 to 100%, and then they use the design development phase, the sort of those terminologies. Like from your perspective, what is that sweet spot that you're trying to hit where you're not too early because then you have no information, right? And we're just making things up at that point, but that you're not too late where you can't change anything. So that kind of I want to like put that in the context to answer that start date question of
that's perfect.
like and usually that's, and then that in the context, like, okay, we're in the 50% drawing now and we're starting in 4 months, right? So just can you respond to that a little bit?
Yeah, so I've got a builder here in Central Oregon. They're going to do 24 homes and they're going to break ground on two homes per month, and they're all customs and they're all going to be zero energy ready. And so we're in the 25% right now. We only have floor plans and elevations,
Right.
so we can get an idea of what's going on. So I'm working with the architect on this.
Okay.
And I'm sitting down and I'm charging early design consulting on this. So
Right.
it's a time is money, but it only takes a little bit of time per plan. So
Right.
for this builder, we've got 24 custom homes, and I sit down. It's maybe 1 hour per plan.
Right.
And I'll go through the elevations and the floor plans and try and see little things like where are we going to get our chases? Where are we going to get our returns? We've got a shed roof assembly. Where, are we going to do drop soffits? Is it mini splits? These are the questions I can ask the architect right off the bat. So it can really open up the design concept. Um, at that 25% drawings,
Yeah.
I'm working with Lightfoot Architect, and we're just
Okay.
spitballing. Hey, what if we want to do mini
Right.
splits with a CERV? Or do
Right.
we want to do a CFIS and a forced air system? And we can play around different concepts,
Yeah.
and I can throw out different ideas there. So personally, I like to do this. If I can get to the architect, I like to do it when they're coming up with ideas.
Okay. So yeah, so 25%. And do relatively speaking, and I know this is different in every project, the larger the project, this changes, of course, too. But, where does that put you out time-wise as far as, from when construction starts should be usually?
I have a project that I've been working on for 7 years, and we're about to break ground this year.
Uh, yep, I know that that's the case too. So let's just say, I think, when we talk about put it in the context of the green programs, I think I always look at enterprise as a good model. I think they require that enterprise requires that they approve the plans 60 days out before a hammer is swung. Don't quote me, it may be 90 days. I get them mixed up. One is 60 on the final and 90 on the beginning, or the other way around. So obviously that means you're probably 60 days before that, so 120 days. So let's say we were, starting this project in 120 days from now, whatever that is, that's like what, 4 months, right?
Yes.
So yeah, 4 months from now, yeah. I think that's where I know I personally like to be, because that gives us that time to go back and forth, get everything worked out, and then get it to the green building QA folks. Your energy QA, right? They want to take a look at it too, maybe give
Yeah.
you some feedback, right? Ideally.
Yeah. So when I'm looking at this, now again, each program is different, but if we're going to do,
Yeah,
I'll just talk about the two different programs. One is Energy Trust, and
yeah,
I can start one of those programs before framing is completed. But
right.
Earth Advantage, I'm not going to do anything unless we've sat down and made sure everything complies. It's a green program.
Yeah,
So we need to at least choose the right materials and make sure the budget is in there in advance. So
right.
for green programs, I would like to maybe have at least 45 to 60 days before ground is broken.
Yeah,
Um, in a perfect world, I'd like to see the plans before permit.
right,
Um, but ideally,
right,
45 to 60 days before ground is broken, so I can
right.
help adjust budgets, things like that, to make sure we
Yeah.
meet our goals.
Yeah.
Does
And I
that,
know some raters and verifiers set their own deadlines, right? They're like, I'm not going to take a project unless I get this much time, right? And so we've had that happen too, where they're like, it's not worth the headache. And I
yeah,
think people just have to make those decisions internally. And you learn, right, as you go, you know, where you don't want the stress, right? Because if you're going to take one where there's less time, I think you get more stress, right?
yeah.
Um, well, and why don't you just real quick, because a question did come in, and I had the same question too. Scroll to the bottom, again to show us the sign-offs. Now that we're talking about architecture and design, because this is one thing that jumped out to me.
Like down here,
um, yeah, so I don't, and so this question came in and I thought the same thing. I don't see the architect on here. And the reason I bring this up is because what happens in the event that there is a disconnect between what you've come up with here versus what's on the plans and specs? I'd imagine whatever's on the plans and specs is law, right? That is what's going to happen. And so I've seen many times where the energy modeler comes up with their whole other list, and then the architects have this, and they're completely disassociated from each other. So what are your thoughts in getting the designer, or architect to sign off?
so that's a great question. And honestly, I hadn't really thought about it until thinking about this meeting
Yeah,
or this presentation. Uh, but looking at, you're right, the plans are the law, and that's
right,
what the permit was issued for. I am black and white. Some people really do not like how I do things because there's not any shades of gray. You either do it or you don't do it. And if I
right,
see something where, let's say it's a 9.5 inch TJI in the floor joist and the plan's called out for 11 and 7/8, well, it changes it from 38 to 30. I'm going to dig my heels in because that's a structural thing. And I'm going to say, until I see something that says this is acceptable, I can't move forward with this project. You can keep building it, but I'm done.
right,
This is you're not building to code. I'm not a code official, but I can't sign off on something that doesn't even meet it.
right, right.
So I've had call outs like that before and I've lost jobs in the past.
Mhm.
But to me, it's a structural and a safety thing and it's a law thing. And if they're not one of the greatest lessons I learned from my previous employer is you don't have to take every job.
Right.
So some jobs, and I'm not saying there's just guaranteed bad builders out there, but
Yeah.
we know that there's bad builders and we don't have to work for everyone. So
Yeah.
sometimes things aren't built to plan, and I've seen it and I've walked away.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm honestly not sure what to do there.
Right.
I've reached out to the code official and said, "Hey, I'm not sure what to do because the code official is a friend of mine."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, I'll keep it under advisement. We'll have a look at it."
Yeah.
And I never hear back, and I lost the job. And I'm sure that the structurally it worked out, but
Yeah.
it's if it's not built to plans, I can't move forward,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
just my business.
right. Yeah. No, I think that's good advice. And I want to come back to the code official comment you made, but let's, make sure we kind of go through this exercise too. So I did want to, I guess, invite people on who are willing to, who are, if you're not comfortable sharing, don't, but I'd say, yeah, if you want to go through this and maybe we'll toss some things out and see if people want to throw an idea out.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what kind of foundation are you thinking on this home?
Yeah, so does anyone have a suggestion as far as foundation types that you typically see or work with that you'd want to put out there?
And then while people are typing, some of the things I'll talk with the architect about at the
Yeah,
25% is what is the heating and cooling strategy? I'm in a cold climate. So are we
right,
doing ducts in the crawl space? Are we going to do
right,
mid-floor? Are we doing attic? So
right.
if they want slab, but they want ducts in the crawl space,
Yeah,
there's not a crawl space. So we can bury them in mud.
right.
I mean, everything's doable, but you need to think about these things. So,
Right. Yeah, you need to start with your foundation first. I like you have that there. We got two responses, so I'll go with the first one. I didn't see basement, so I was happy to not see basement. So crawl space. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. And out here, I'm sorry, I didn't put a basement because we're
Yeah.
on bedrock. Nobody does basements here.
Yeah, that's true. So I don't even see it as a choice. So
Yeah.
but
It's not an option out here unless you
yeah.
have dynamite.
You're lucky to not have to deal with it because it's a failure waiting to happen someday.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Uh, so yeah, conditions, crawl space, great. And then yeah, do you want to go? I don't think we want to
And
go through
then,
all of them, but
so we'll just do, let's do 1.5 inch SPF exterior perimeter. So I enter a detail like this because when I'm going into the modeling software, it's going to ask, okay, how is it conditioned?
yeah,
This is how I get to build the model. And then we'll say perimeter. So now for the underfloor, since it's a conditioned crawl space, do we want sound insulation or is this a budget build? Um,
right,
and with that, are we looking at post and beam, 9.5? What are the on centers?
right,
So these are also, it affects the budget, it affects the engineering, the design. Again, meeting at 25%. These are just questions for the architect.
right.
So any suggestions?
I got someone commenting they see a lot of vented crawl spaces. What do you usually
Okay,
do with that?
so
So
yeah, we'll just go from a
that's
vent.
right, 'cause we picked condition, so yeah.
Yeah. So vented crawl space. What kind of foundation then? Because we'll have insulation there.
Any thoughts, anyone, on what you'd be doing with a vented crawl space? P and B.
Okay.
What
We'll
is
do
that?
P and B. We'll say 32 on center, and we'll say 8 inch R25 for our modeling. Um, Bats. Okay, so we're not a condition crawl floor. We don't have to worry about this. The way I do things is I'd go from the ground up. So now we've built our floor. What kind of walls are we looking at? And again, in my um, climactic zone, 2x6 is mandatory. Uh,
Right,
so we're not going to do anything unless it's going to be that. Again, other areas they can edit it out. So
right.
26 or 16 or 24 on center.
Any thoughts, everyone? Either 2x6 16 or 2x6 24. So 16, yeah, probably. Let's go with 16. I know advanced framing is a tough sell
Yeah.
sometimes.
And so this is a good one as well. I mean, are we, just Tyvek and Breckenridge siding? Are we a zip system, plywood OSB? Some places use thermal ply. Um, so out here, we're almost always a plywood sheathing.
Right.
We do see zip or air barrier systems like that, and that's why I put that here because it could be a part of the air barrier.
Well, yeah, and I know for like multifamily and larger projects, we are seeing a lot more zip
Yeah,
where we are. That just seems to be more common on the bigger scale projects. So,
but you could do something like plywood OSB and Henry's blueskin. So now you have plywood and an integrated air barrier over that. Um, in this situation, are we going to do bats or blown in blanket
any thoughts on
or
installation?
cellulose?
Anyone want to? Bats? Yeah.
All right. And then working our way through, let's
So let
just,
me ask you this question
yeah,
when you get to the bats conversation. Now, obviously, you grade the bats, and in many cases, especially fiberglass, let's pick on it, is kind of designed to fail, right?
yeah,
So does this conversation come up on the grading during this time, especially if you have the
absolutely.
contractor?
So that's the other thing I do is there's a company called Insulation Institute.
Uh-huh.
They've
Oh,
got
okay.
a great downloadable form.
Mm,
And so I show up to all my early design assists with the downloadable form on grade one insulation in
yeah.
English and in Spanish. And I just hand it to the contractor.
Yeah.
And they have photos on there that shows exactly what's going on. So Energy Star has changed a little bit on their grading, but we still
Mm,
have grading. And it is very difficult to see grade one. Very
yeah.
difficult. So I really encourage builders. I say, if you're we're looking for some incentive money here. And so is there a way to try and squeeze a little bit more money out because you're going to improve the thermal envelope quite a bit, improve your
Yeah.
ERI, to try and get to bibs? It's a
Yeah.
much, much better application and really helps out. So quite often, I'm going to say 70 to 80% of my homes are bibs.
And to be clear, that's
That's
exterior rigid continuous.
No, I'm sorry. Bibs is blown in blanket system. So it
Oh,
would be a
yeah, yeah, yeah.
fiberglass
Yep.
net and blow or cellulose net and
Okay.
blow.
Okay.
And
Yeah, so I don't see, so is hybrid then R30? Is that the exterior continuous? Is that
no, that would be that's like spray foam,
okay?
1.5 inches, and then backfill with
Okay.
blown in blanket. The
Yeah.
outboard insulation in Oregon, it's
Mm.
almost like it's toxic. Like Washington, California, Idaho, Nevada, everybody around us does it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
nobody does it here in Oregon. It's
yeah.
it's very unusual. So I just didn't even have it there.
Yeah. Okay. I just didn't know if it comes up because I've seen, part of that conversation is, yeah, you're doing the fiberglass bats doomed to fail. You're gonna get a grade two if you're lucky. So the solution, we've seen is like doing the 1 inch on the exterior to
Yeah.
then basically, especially if it's zip, right? Basically to overcome the expectation of you not getting a one, right? So, but yeah, it is very rare. I don't see it either. So, yeah,
And that might be, I do see like zip R sheathing. And so
yeah,
that would be under the custom.
right, yeah. Um, okay, yeah, great, yep.
So as far as Windows go, Windows and SHGC, this is a value engineering side that I love to have with designers because they're the ones that can really influence the builder on this.
Mhm,
Haul the window out specifically, slightly change the size on the north, south, east, and west. If all the windows are the same, it's going to be hard to cherry pick them. But
mhm,
glazing on windows is expensive. You don't need any type of good SHGC on the north or the east side. So if you can call those out slightly different, and then the south and the west side slightly different, then you can actually save quite a bit of money on the window package. Really thinking about that in advance, and then also where do you need a window? In Central Oregon, where I live, we've got amazing mountain views. So everybody wants this western wall of windows, but then we have all that heat coming through.
Yeah.
And if I can work with the designer in advance, we can say, hey, instead of a wall of windows, let's do sections of windows because you'll have your couch here, you'll have the dining room here, and we can see things better. Now that will really improve the ERI.
Right.
Windows are a big, big conversation, especially in a custom home. So that's where I really like to work with the designer on calling those out because then they're going to save money on the glazing.
And let me ask you this question, for those who want to obtain like passive solar strategies, does this come up here and then, overhangs and all of that? Is that something that,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes. So I'm trying to really explain the benefits
right,
of, we've got a company here in Oregon called Solar Homes, and they do every home is designed as passive solar with active solar as well.
right, right,
And it's, they'll do slabs in certain areas to absorb that solar gain. This is where I really talk with that builder about it. We want to maximize that eastern morning light, gain that heat. We're in a desert environment, so it's cold in the mornings.
right. Yeah, yeah.
So free heat is great. Um, so yeah, I windows are a big ticket item, and then sliding doors or sliders and doors. I'll also talk about those because a full light versus a half light door changes
Right,
from a door to a window,
right.
and
Yeah,
that's different with the ERI. So all
yeah,
of these things, just a slight design difference, can make a big change.
yeah.
So we'll say it's
What's Energy Star in your region there for that?
we're minimum 0.27 and
Okay.
zero point 0.3. All doors are R5. Um, and then so target ACH. What would be a target ACH for you guys?
Yeah, so if you're doing a green program, you really have to be, depending on the unit size, we actually use, and let me ask you this question. Um, we actually use per enclosure, right? So
Oh yeah,
CFM per enclosure as their targets. And I thought the industry is really starting to move away from ACH, but I'd be curious on your thoughts. And especially though, when you get into multifamily and attached housing, I think we're typically at zero point 0.3, CFM at 50 per enclosure. So just what are your thoughts on that?
I'm so glad you brought that up because I
Yeah.
do a lot of commercial testing as well, and that's
Okay.
all based on enclosure. So Oregon is very progressive. We follow ASHRAE 2022 standards on that, and it's 0.35 ACH on all commercial buildings.
Hmm.
Anything under 10,000 square feet mandatorily has a blower door test. Anything
Yeah.
over 10,000 square feet is either a blower door test or plan review,
Yeah.
pre-submit with site inspections throughout the build and a report. I like the enclosure testing more than the ACH because
Yeah.
you're getting a real perspective. I mean, I've got builders that make 410 square foot single family homes in cluster cottages, and then I've got one that's 13,000 square feet. And ACH is not a good metric between those two.
Right.
So I would love to see enclosure testing and talking. I'm not sure where it's going from a federal standpoint, but I talk a lot with Brett and Connor Dillon over at BSI, and they have indicated that it has been trending towards that direction. Now, with changes that are happening federally, who knows what's going to happen? But
Right.
my feeling is that enclosure is much more accurate
Yeah.
and a better representative, better representation of the build itself.
And then of course, as you mentioned on the note, that you have these wall details, these drawings that you share out. And in fact, some people were asking about sharing some of those if maybe we could in a follow-up email, like
Yeah.
some of the different detailing. But obviously air sealing is as much of an art as it is a science, right? Like you can target your AC all day long, but then what ends up happening? Now, of course, you mentioned the magic air sealing technology at the beginning that, as I joke, where do you want to be, right? You just have them come in and pump the walls up and the ducts and you're there, right? In theory. But other than that, like what are some just general thoughts on how you get this number into reality?
So that is a great question, and that comes down to training and time.
Hmm,
You have to have the time to inspect a home properly. Um, so as far as I've worked on one living building challenge home,
hmm,
and on that project, there was no aero barrier that was involved. It was all manual sealing. They brought everything down to zero point 0.6. And I'm sure you've seen plenty of projects where there's no spray foam at all in it,
right,
and they're bringing it down super tight.
right.
Um, if in the design, for instance, zip sheathing, this low income builder that I was talking about, where they use the aero barrier, and I'm not a big fan of aero barrier. I think it's great, but it is very expensive, and it's an entire day where nobody can go in and out of the house, so it slows the project down. It's an added expense and added time. If they do proper block and seal, proper framing, and they do things like zip sheeting with tape, and then there's a few other details. Like I will talk with the builder and say, what about some concepts like, for instance, take a roll of Tyvek, 10
Yeah.
feet long, cut it into 2 foot sections,
Hmm,
and take that and put it on the bottom 1 foot of the exterior wall, sheath it, and then wrap it up. Now you have a small gasket on the bottom side of the exterior plate. And it's
right.
a nominal cost increase. By giving suggestions like this and then site inspections periodically to validate this, it's how I can make sure we're hitting our target.
Yeah.
But
You
again, it's time.
Yeah. And that was going to be one of my questions about train the trades. Like in lead, there's points for that. Enterprise kind of requires that a little bit. It sounds like if that's extra services. Have you ever seen anyone do white box out units where they sort of finish a whole unit or a whole home before they even start the others to kind of use it as a learning opportunity on the whole project? Have you, or do you, I mean, most of the people we encounter, like, I ain't got time for that.
I've seen that on two builders
Yeah,
so far, and it worked out great.
yeah,
They built start to finish,
yeah,
and this one of the builders, it was a house and an ADU, and then he
right.
was going to do 10 more of them.
Yeah,
And he just wanted to do the first one, let it
yeah,
sit for about 6 months as a model
yeah,
to kind of build up the hype. And it worked out great.
yeah,
We were able to see all of the little issues.
yeah,
And the first build out was 9.5 months. By
yeah,
the last build out, it was down to 7.
right. Yeah,
So, you think you're saving 2 months on a build out. Time is money. And
right. Yeah,
that's all of the different things that were corrected. So they saved time with that many corrections.
yeah.
So, it's a wonderful concept to be able to have that, but you're right. It doesn't happen very often.
And one question that kind of came in, and you think about communication, and even I misread what Bibbs meant. I mean, do you provide or do you advise providing a sort of list of definitions, right? Like, hey, someone's reading this. What the heck is this? Do you have anything like that or suggest that?
So the photos when you had asked about possibly sharing some of those.
Yeah, yeah,
I've been in touch with Energy Trust of Oregon and asked permission to use all of this stuff, and they
yeah.
said absolutely. So what I can do is share the verifier field guide with
Okay.
you, and then that can be shared to the group, and that
Okay.
is both English and Spanish.
Yeah.
And so the thing that is really nice,
Yeah.
it's this big,
Okay.
and it's basically a pocket manual and
Okay.
35 pages with photos.
Okay.
It's truly a field guide.
Yeah.
It's downloadable in PDF, so you can have it on your phone or your iPad or tablet,
Yeah.
whatever. And just, you show up at the job site, or if you're sitting down with the installation contractor, you can show the 6-sided box.
Right. Right. Right.
So, yes, absolutely. The photos, everything's shareable, and that's what this is about: is different ways of communicating. If you need Brett, I will get with you after this and I'll share maybe my jump drive of all my downloaded photos from federal sites as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then people can just, cherry pick. And this will also
Right.
be on the our council's website.
Okay. And yeah, the photo's great. And I guess again, just do they spell out all these,
Yeah.
things, SHG, like just for people who are, not in the industry every day, acronym, I think people shut down, right? So,
But and again, like I said, this is designed for the rater
right,
currently,
right,
but
right, right,
editable. So when I'm talking with a builder, I won't say SHGC. I'm going to say you have insulation and you have sunglasses.
right, right,
We
right.
don't need sunglasses on the north side because the
Yeah.
sun's never there. So
True.
let's that's how I present it is in
Right.
late.
Yeah, yeah.
This is more for the modeling side so that once this is filled out, I can take it, sit down
Right.
with software.
Yep. And so somebody's ideally interpreting this. So, yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
And this could also be where the builder fills this out and sends it off to the verification company to do some preliminary modeling.
Well, and that's where I was kind of getting at is I almost see you have your more savvy builders and designers and architects, right? And they're kind of getting ahead of that, filling it out, and then you sit down with the rater to do that. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've even heard to go so far as some architects getting into the modeling software themselves, generating a model, sending it to the rater, and then the rater just confirming that it works. And I've talked to some raters and they're horrified by that idea. But then I'm like, hey, nothing gets through till you verify it, right? Like, don't be scared, so yeah,
Well, and there's two architects that I've worked with locally, and I've shown them. So in Oregon, we have what's called a Measure 6 calculator.
right.
And that's the building envelope needs to be 6% greater than code.
Hmm.
And this will allow a builder who has high performance walls on a custom home to actually put in like a zero point 0.4 U factor window,
Right.
and it still meets code. And so these architects doing custom homes, they're like, well, I've got this amazing stained glass, but what do we need to do to make sure that these windows can go in? We need to
Yeah.
increase the walls or increase this. So, I love it when the architects dip into the rating side.
Yeah.
We're the raters that have to approve it. They're
Right.
just playing with things. So I encourage it.
So tell me more about six-sided box here. I think I
Yes.
get it, but I haven't heard it in that term.
So if you think of a six-sided box,
Yeah.
when we talk about an exterior wall, and it's 2 by 6, 16 on center, which is what we chose for our framing. We have a bottom plate and a top plate. We have the left and right stud.
Yeah.
So that creates four sides of the box. We have the exterior sheathing and we have the drywall. That's a six-sided box. Now, when we look at let's say tub shower prefab combo on an exterior wall, we put fiberglass bats in that wall. Then we put the tub up against there, and there might be FSK paper if we're lucky, but quite often there's nothing. Now, the reason for a six-sided box, that's only five sides. The fiberglass tub has a giant air gap between the conditioned side and the exterior wall. Condensation can form there,
All right.
mold issues. It's not a efficiency side so much. I mean, it helps
Right.
with air leakage, but this is a structural
Yeah.
issue. So homes are not just supposed to be energy efficient, but they're supposed to last for 100 years.
Right.
And this is a way to ensure it's not just efficient, but it's above code from structural aspects, from all other aspects.
Hmm.
So if we've got, let's say, a skylight,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, and I see that down below there as you're kind of
yeah,
well,
so
light can lightings anyway. So yeah. Yeah.
But like a skylight, for instance, you've got that drywall side on the conditioned side that we're looking at, but then there's an attic side, and that's cold.
Hmm.
And air can come through that attic and affect it. So we want a rigid air barrier there to lock that up and
Mm.
make sure that every exterior wall has a six-sided box for condensation, for air tightness, for efficiency, and structural durability.
Right. Yeah.
So this is all about longevity of the house as well as health and safety and efficiency.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, as far as things like outlets and switch plates, these are or can lights. When you look at Energy Star, for instance, you have to have caulking that goes all the way around each of those penetrations.
Right.
So when I'm talking about, do we have can lights? Are they actual true can lights or are they surface mount flush lights? If
Right.
they're can lights, we need to think about additional air sealing. What do we want to
Yeah.
do? That's why I want to ask these questions.
Yeah, and that kind of gets into my, I guess, the question I asked you about your air leakage targets. Like these, you know, these start to, it's right there next to it, right? They're kind of answering whether that's going to be successful or not, right?
Yeah, one builds on the next that builds
Yeah.
on the next.
Right. So that brings me, I want to talk a little bit about HVAC here.
Yeah.
And so I guess, I want to so it looks like, you get through the shell, right? And you've got
Hmm.
your shell. And at that point, now I think you have the information you need to get the manual certified manual J heat load calculator. I
Exactly.
know some of the energy rating tools also generate their own heat load calcs that I have found in practice to be relatively close to the manual
Yeah.
J when the rater knows what the heck they're doing. So you almost can get a sizing, if I understand right, even before you get the mechanical contractor involved. But on that conversation, is this now like the time where you're able to bring into the HVAC into the conversation and say, now let's get that, that manual J, done and have that be part of this? How do you work with that?
So great question. Doing Energy Star, and we're version 3.2. It's required to have manual JS and D. We
Yeah,
have to do ANSI 310 standards. So at this point, if this is all, let's say, at 75%, now I can do my shell. And you're
yeah,
absolutely right. I was working with a good friend of mine who was building an ADU, and we ran it through Ecotrope. It came out at 13,000 BTU, and the manual J was 16,000. So you're right. It's very, very close, and it can help. At
yeah,
this point, I'll give my HVAC contractor the information I've got.
yeah.
Now, you're right on the sizing, but if you think about some homes can be long and skinny custom.
Mhm.
And so it might only be 2,200 square feet and it
Yeah,
calls for a 4-ton system because the run is so long. So the HVAC contractors I work
Mhm.
with, I do want to oversee some of that manual D side to make sure
Right.
that if they're sizing this up, you know, which climactic zone are you in?
Yeah,
Which climactic class are you in? Are you in A or B for Energy Trust or Energy Star? Because if you're
right.
in climactic B, you're allowed to size 140% above,
Yeah.
but not any greater than that. So this is the manuals for sizing are great. And um, in Central Oregon, we have a lot of multiple heat sources. So we might have a mini split with a forced air and hydronic. And it's just a whole bunch of different things because different designs. So each of those, I'll sit down with the HVAC contractor and just kind of work my way through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very, very important.
And I want to talk a little bit on the commissioning end because you brought up you made a statement, and correct me if I heard you wrong, but and I don't disagree with you, but you said raters tend to know more about HVAC than HVAC or something
No.
like that,
Yeah,
or
Raiders tend to know more about ventilation than HVAC.
ventilation. Okay, thank you. Yeah, yeah. And I don't disagree that raters in many cases know more about high performance testing of HVAC than even HVAC contractors do. And so I wanted to just bring up, not all, but I wanted to bring up, the ANSI 310 standard, right? And so are you seeing and getting more involved on the output side of and having this conversation of like, hey, is the rater going to be the one commissioning, or is the HVAC going to be the one commissioning this system?
So, great question. And I don't have the bulletproof answer on that.
Hmm.
Connor Dillon does.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I do know that moving forward, it looks like with version 3.2, it's either going to be HQuido, so the HVAC contractor has to go through special certification training and
Right,
onboarding,
right,
or
right,
it's
right,
going to be the rater.
right.
And so the rater will be doing the commissioning. Um, I don't know any HVAC
And by
contractor
that
in
you
my
mean,
area.
and by that you mean the HVAC contractor doesn't got time to go through the training, right? Is that what you mean? It's going to
Exactly.
be the rater's job to do it? Yeah.
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 The HVAC contractor can install, turn on, and walk away.
Right. Yeah.
And so For all I ask for in this situation is, look, if you're not H Quito, call me
Yeah,
when you're doing your weigh-in. I need to
yeah,
show up. And if you can't call me, make sure your phone is on properly
yeah,
for the geo, and I need the photo.
yeah,
And if it's warm enough, I can do the non-invasive method.
yeah,
Now, I've got an EPA license, so I can also do additional commissioning and, tap into the system. I
yeah,
don't encourage people to go that route. It's a lot of extra training. If you have time and you're curious about it, I think it's great.
yeah,
Um, but just from the standard rater side, we can either do the weigh-in method with a photo, and either we're there or they have the proper setup on their phone for geotagging it, or we do the non-invasive method. And
right.
non-invasive requires very specific temperatures. So I can only do non-invasive about 4 months of the year.
Oh, okay. And that's during the heating season?
During the cooling season. So
Cooling season.
it's got to be greater than 70 degrees outside and
Yeah,
70 degrees inside to get the system running.
yeah, yeah,
And in Central Oregon, we hit that June, July, August, but
right.
and sometimes in September, but it's not year round. So more often
Yeah,
than not, it's the weigh-in method.
yeah, yeah. Well, Doug, I'm gonna switch to something here real
Yep.
quick, just as we wrap up. As a reminder that everyone that yes, this session is being recorded. You can catch it later on demand. You can check our YouTube channel, or you can go there and click subscribe, and you'll get an instant update when it is available. Um, For those of you watching this on demand, take your quiz with an 80% passing rate and you'll receive your continuing ed. For those of you here, as long as you've been here the entire CU approved hour, you'll receive your continuing ed certificate. Take that survey that pops up at the end or an hour later, it'll be sent to you. And check your spam for certs at gutenbergcerts.com over the next couple days to receive that certification. And then finally, a huge thanks to our board of directors, our volunteers, our executive director, Jose Reina, our over 400 members. We're trying to get to 500 in celebration of our 25th year anniversary this year. So help us get there. And our top tier sponsors who are making the products that will go into your conversations to help you hit the lower energy ratings and decarbonize, such as Ream for air source heat pump systems, Build Equinox for smarter ventilation, and many others. So Doug, is there just, I guess, in brief here, anything else you wanted to share, go over on that list there that we should be, I guess, aware of as people are taking a look at that?
No, I think just the most important thing is, have a look at this. There's different standards throughout the nation. I mean, you go to Texas and you're going to use everything from 2009 IECC to 2021. So,
Yeah,
know the codes you're using, know the standards you're using, if possible, work with the designer as early as possible. A little bit of time spent in the beginning saves a lot of time in the end. That is really the most important thing is don't look at it as a time suck. Look at it as an investment in yourself in the future.
yeah. No, that's really great advice. And yeah, well, Doug, I really appreciate your time and everyone for coming on here. And just quick reminder, where can people go to learn more about the Home Energy Rating Systems Council, the benefits of either whether they're a rater and getting involved, or even if they're not a rater, are there benefits for those who are working with raters to go and look at that?
Yeah, yeah. We do have a website, and I mentioned it in the beginning. I should have had it on the slides, but I'll make sure Brett's got a copy of it as well.
Yeah.
It is Home Energy Rating Systems, plural, council.org.
Okay.
And we are for raters and non-raters. The raters get to vote, and that's if we're going to be potentially trying to lobby for improving ANSI or ISO standards, things like that, speaking up on a national level. Non-voting members would be members like BSI Institute or True Tech Tools, um,
Mm.
Build Equinox, where they can support us and be advertised. But all of our information is there. We do have a members and a non-members section. The non-members section has a lot of resources. We have a lot of continuing education on there as well
Yeah.
that are free webinars, items like that. So it's a
Yeah.
great resource for raters, and we're just trying to build a community for people to share knowledge throughout the nation.
Yeah.
You know,
And I know we're going to have more people on from the council sharing just as great ideas that you've shared with all of us, and people appreciate it here. So, yeah. Well, with that, I think we're going to wrap up here, but we're not on next week. I'm out in the real world giving live presentations for once, so I'm excited about that. But we'll be back again in 2 weeks with you all. And again, thank you so much, Doug, and take care and be well, everyone else. So, thank you.
thank you guys.
Be sure to check out all of our courses available online that you can watch anytime and anywhere to pick up your CEUs. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to get weekly updates and stay up to date on green building science courses, webinars, and home tours. Thanks again.